Have you ever asked the question, what did Fred Rogers really believe? After 9/11, he had the opportunity to speak to every adult that had been a child under his influence during the time that he ran his program, his neighborhood. Mr. Rogers' neighborhood was influenced by, without question, psychology. But more than that, was very deeply rooted and influenced by the synagogue of Satan. As you will hear yourself, an opportunity of a lifetime. After 9/11, he had an opportunity to share the gospel of Jesus Christ and supposedly being a minister of the gospel. Instead of sharing Jesus and the gospel with all those that were suffering, confused, and hurting after 9/11, these are the words that Fred Rogers chose to use.
No matter what our particular job, especially in our world today, we all are called to be Tikkun Olam, repairers of creation. Thank you for whatever you do, wherever you are, to bring joy and light and hope and faith and pardon and love to your neighbor and to yourself.
Now that seems like a very nice thing to do, right? But how many know nice does not get you into heaven? Tikkun Olam is Jewish mysticism. It's Kabbalah. It's a counterfeit. Folks, it's a counterfeit. It's the idea of everybody doing their part, doing their good deed, the idea of the spark within of each of us. We all have the divine spark within, and that we all need to do our part. We all need to be a helper. This is the gospel of Judaism, the Kabbalah, and the Zohar in mysticism that is taking over, not just the United States of America, but taking over the world. Fred Rogers had an opportunity to share Jesus Christ. He had an opportunity to share the truth. But because he is not a sheep, but yet he is a wolf in sheep's clothing, he promoted Jewish mysticism. He promoted the tradition of the Jews, which Jesus himself said, because of your traditions, you make the word of God of none effect. Now let's look at a clip of someone else that used the same term.
From the countless friends I know in this room, to the concept of Tikkun Olam that has enriched and guided my life. and as a man who's been inspired in my own life by that timeless calling within the Jewish experience, Tikkun Olam, I am hopeful that we can draw upon what's best in ourselves to meet the challenges that will come, to win the battles for peace in the wake of so much war, and to do the work of repairing this world. That's your job. That's my job. That's the task of all of us. May God bless you. May God bless Israel. May God bless the United States of America. Toda Rabah.
Please tell me how a Muslim is praying for the peace of Israel. Tell me. How does a practicing Muslim pray for the peace of Israel? Let's listen to a Synagogue of Satan Jew himself. Let's hear what he says about Tikkun or Tikkun or Tikkun Olam.
The Jewish people has been exiled from its land since the destruction of the temple by the Romans. Before that, the temple had been destroyed by the Babylonians, and that consciousness of exile became a very deep part of the Jewish mentality. We are in exile, but one day we will be restored. That sense of exile, you can say, goes back even farther than the first destruction of the temple. It goes back to the story of the expulsion from the Garden of Eden itself. Once we left Eden, all humanity, you may say, is in exile. We live in an exilic world. And we long to be restored to the original home, to the original Eden in which human beings were created. That sense of exile and redemption, long exile, longing for redemption, has very much been a part of the Jewish religious mentality for thousands of years. Tikkun Olam means working to bring about the end of that exile. It means repairing the world, bringing the sparks of light back, discovering the goodness of God wherever it's scattered. How do we do that? We do that by living with other people. We do that by doing acts of goodness, acts of human kindness. Every time you do good, you are raising up some of that light, making the world a better place, bringing the presence of God into greater clarity in your life and in the lives of those around you, and bringing Messiah's arrival one step closer. We have to do everything we can to make that arrival more possible by making the world better, by bringing about some bit of redemption in our own lives. Jews have understood that very well, partly because of the suffering and oppression that's been so much a part of our history. And therefore many Jews, even if they don't think of themselves as religious, don't know very much about the tradition, bear within them that sense of making the world a better place is something we have to do. We're very proud of the fact that many Jews, even if they see themselves as secular, have somehow deeply within them a sense that I have to work to make the world better. I have to work for more human decency, for more human rights, for more recognition of every human being as the image of God. That sense that we were slaves to Pharaoh in Egypt, that sense that we know the soul of the stranger because we were oppressed, that sense that we have long been in exile and we have to help others redeem their worlds as we redeem ours, is a very deep part of the Jewish soul and the Jewish experience through our history.
It's interesting. How many know that is Antichrist? That is the spirit of Antichrist. Did you notice he said we're looking for our Messiah? Did you hear that? We're waiting for the revealing or for the coming of our Messiah. So, Fred Rogers, without question, was a secret, mystic, practicing Jew. Did you hear what I said? A secret, practicing Jew. Notice those that were working on this movie about Mr. Rogers. A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood cast felt Mr. Rogers' spirit. They felt his spirit. Loving everybody on set. You hear that? They felt his spirit. Mr. Rogers' spirit. You ought to think about that, people. That's Jewish mysticism right there. Let's listen to his words.
And he's very lovely. And then becoming Fred Rogers was not unlike witnessing his spirit really just coming back into the fold. And because we were on the actual stages, a lot of those people came to visit. I became very good friends with the character I played, Bill Eisler, and his wife. So Bill, his wife Marty, and Joanne Rogers was there as well. It's hard not to think that Fred wasn't present the whole time, just doing what he does best and just loving everybody for what they're bringing in.
We are trying to give the world positive ways of dealing with their feelings.
I think I was a little too old for Mr. Rogers. I had missed that window. But like most things in my life, not unlike broccoli or spinach, you appreciate it as you get older and you understand the value and what he was doing and how he approached life. And what he says at the end is like what is mentionable is manageable. If we can talk about something, then we can manage it. And he introduced that to a child who really didn't understand it. And as an adult, we were frightened of it. So the question I get more often than not is, do we need him now more than ever? And of course, we always needed him. We needed him in the 60s. We needed him in the 70s. We don't need him any more now than we did in the past because he saw the beauty that is present, that is still present. And I hope that what this film does is just remind us all of the beauty that is present.
Do you see how they're talking about Fred Rogers? Do you see how they're talking about him as though he is Christ? His own son said of his dad, if it was his dad, said that he was the second Christ. Where'd he get that idea? And so here you have someone that was a child under Mr. Rogers. Okay? A child is now an adult. And you see the effect that Mr. Rogers had on him with psychology, working with the synagogue of Satan, the Antichrist spirit. This is all to destroy Jesus Christ, the true Messiah, the true Christ. Okay? That's what this is all about. So let's look at something else here. Take a look at this. Where is the Jewish Mr. Rogers? The Jewish Mr. Rogers. Go into the article, and basically what they're saying is, we need a Jewish Mr. Rogers. We need someone to come on the scene that's like Mr. Rogers, but Jewish. Okay? That's what they're saying. And they talked about how when he went to the Senate to the senator, and he was fighting for his program, and he was awarded $20 million, and how he took this man that was like a pharaoh and melted him. And they're saying, we need Fred Rogers today. Okay? And remember, they're saying they're looking for their Messiah. They're saying that Fred was there, present, while they made the movie. Folks, I want you to understand something. That's necromancy. And not only that, but without question, Tom Hanks was trying to channel Fred, because that's what acting in Hollywood is now. It's channeling. So if you are watching this movie that they put together, you're involved in necromancy, and you don't even know it. You're involved in Spiritism. You're involved in the synagogue of Satan. Hey, listen, this is far beyond the Passion, which was, without question, a black mass, the Catholic Church. It's far beyond that. This has to do with Jewish Babylon mysticism. This is Babylon, people. Antichrist. This was a scathing review that came out today. And you ought to read it sometime. You really should. Christian faith is the missing ingredient in A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. This man goes on to be very critical of the movie and says that Tom Hanks promoted secular humanism. Now, it's not that he did not represent Fred Rogers properly. It's that in the minds of the people, and even this man that's being critical of the movie, that's writing this article, in his mind, Fred Rogers was not a secular humanism or a humanist. But I believe that Tom Hanks hit the nail on the head. He was a secular humanist. Very much so. And I'm glad. If that's what came out of the movie, that's who he was. He was not the person that in the minds of these children that are now adults thought he was. He was working with Jewish mysticism. He was working with Jewish psychologists. Not just one, but many. Are you listening, people? Psychology. This was all about control. This was seduction, control. How many know that, without question, Fred Rogers was the puppet? He was the puppet for the puppet masters. And on his deathbed, he said to his wife, "Was I a sheep?" That was his question. Was I a sheep? You would think if he was really who everyone thought he was, he wouldn't have had any question or doubt that he was a sheep. Why did Fred Rogers question whether he was saved? Well, I think we just found out why. He was promoting Antichrist. He was promoting the synagogue of Satan. He never shared Jesus. He never once shared Jesus Christ. In all the opportunities he had and the platform that he had, he never shared Jesus. Do you really think that's a Christian? Do you really think that is a follower of Jesus? Never sharing Jesus on the platform that you have with little children. But yet, he taught life's lessons. He taught humanism. He taught secularism. And he worked for the synagogue of Satan. He was very good friends with the synagogue of Satan. Are you listening? I hope that you won't just stick your head in the sand and just say it's not so. Because you so want to believe that Fred Rogers was a good man. He himself questioned whether he was a sheep. There's only one other. That's a goat. Why would his own wife say to those that made the movie, do not portray him as a saint, as a good man? Why? Because that's not how she saw him. She didn't see him as a saint. She didn't see him as a good man. It's almost as if she's saying to be a saint's not a good thing. You would think that she would want everyone to think that he was a saint. It's another gospel, people. They hate the true gospel. They hate Jesus Christ. They hate the blood of Jesus. They hate everything there is to do with the true Jesus. That's why Fred never shared Jesus Christ. In fact, he actually read every morning what was called the divine office. Did you know that? He read the divine office. Catholic. That's what he read. He was part of the Catholic Mass. Okay? So why such a revival, is such a stirring about Fred Rogers? To destroy Christianity. They're using Fred Rogers to destroy Christianity. They're the same ones that are coming out with these scathing articles. They're trying to destroy the idea in the mind of the people that he was a Christian. It wouldn't surprise me if they don't come out saying that he was a very bad man. He had a secret life. They're trying to destroy. That's their purpose, is to destroy. They're not builders. And they're not what Fred Rogers calls the good people, a helper. They're not helpers. They're destroyers. Jesus said they are of their father, the devil. So they're actually murderers. Are you listening, people? This is hypocrisy at the highest level. Don't drink the Kool-Aid.